What's up, everyone? Watchmen Episode 3 dropped on HBO yesterday. What a fucking series this is. We're here to talk about it. We got to discuss.
Crazy.
Find a series where you have to discuss more than this right now.
There probably isn't one out there. I would assume there isn't one, especially because I can't even believe that this series got made with how Easter eggy and in-depth it gets.
It is
inside.
One, crazy that it did get made, and two, crazy that it's good. Like, I just didn't think...
Yeah.
Not that Lindelof makes bad things. I mean, Lost, Watchmen... not Watchmen, excuse me, The Leftovers. Not that he makes bad things, but it's one of those concepts and ideas I'm like, man, I could see that just not working.
Especially, like, it's... I can't imagine watching this and having no prior knowledge of Watchmen. I'm sure most of the audience is probably doing it, but oh my god, you have to be confused by literally every scene you have. For me, at least, I'm like picking up little pieces and details, knowing things, but...
Because you've read the graphic novel.
Yeah, I read it back when the
Yeah.
Snyder movie came out. So I was a kid when I was reading that.
I did a lot of catching up because this show is a lot more based on the graphic novel than it is the movie. It really isn't connected to the movie whatsoever.
No,
and
not
he even
really.
said this is not a sequel to the graphic novel. It is, but it isn't. And he mentioned it, and I'll reference it a little bit. Lindelof has done a podcast on this, and I got to listen to it, and there's a couple things he said that we'll mention. But it is a sequel, but it also isn't, so there's some things that don't totally line up.
This episode is the most sequely of the bunch, definitely.
Episode 3 is the most, I think, Watchmen-y.
It felt like almost a direct
Absolutely.
sequel. This one.
Yes. So I want to start with this because we'll talk about the episode, answer some questions that we have for each other. I want you those to fill people in because we called out for questions, and the most questions that we got were about the connections to the graphic novel. What the fuck's up with the squid?
Yeah, tell us about the squid,
The squid is
please.
probably the most confusing thing for someone who hasn't read the novel or hasn't read the novel and seen the movie, especially because that's what really gets
they
like,
changed.
hairy.
The squid is not in the movie. So what the squid is basically back in the Watchmen graphic novel, back in the 1980s. It's a very Thanos type way of bringing people together. OZYMANDIAS has this plan where he's like, the world is on the brink of nuclear holocaust. How can we get everyone together? And he unleashes a giant squid on New York City to kill like 3 million people with the hope that, you know, it kills 3 million people, the world gets together,
It's
no
kind of a
longer...
common enemy.
Exactly. And that is what happens. In the movie, they changed that because it would be pretty ridiculous to see it. I actually think the squid graphic novel ending works best for the graphic novel. The movie ending works best for the movie. Like, the way they treated both are perfect.
And so you see squid dropping out of the sky. We only saw that one episode, though.
Which was
The first
another
one.
thing where I'm like, if
Tons
you
of
don't
squids,
know
yeah.
Watchmen, like, what are you thinking during this scene?
And there's a conspiracy of, like, is this real? Is this the government?
Because I didn't even know what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I was like, is this? I didn't know if it was
raining
real.
squids,
I was like,
yeah.
squids. All right, this has some sort of connection to the graphic novel. That's how I feel with 99% of this show, by the way. I'm like, all right, I'm sure this has some kind of connection somewhere.
Yeah, you still don't know, which a lot of it is a mystery. And Lindelof said that himself, the executive producer, writer, creator of this. He said that this is a mystery show. He said the comic's a mystery as well, the graphic
Definitely.
novel. Like, he referenced in his body, said, you don't find out who Rorschach is till halfway through the graphic novel. So
And
that's
it
like-
is a detective story of like,
Yeah,
there's
of
something
course.
more going on
They're
with
all
the murder
detectives
of the,
and cops.
the
Yeah,
comedian, like what's going on here. And obviously, the first episode of the show kicks off in the same way with even the blood splatter on the badge, which I loved.
Yep.
So
yep.
sick. Oh, it's great.
Rorschach's journal, that's the other thing. So the 7th Cavalry, who is basically just like a repurposed Ku Klux
KKK,
Klan.
yeah.
Their like ideology is based off of Rorschach when he mailed his journal, right? That's like the other thing to explain is like, why
Yes.
do they base things off Rorschach, and why do people know? Because like people are aware that Ozymandias is a bad guy because of that.
Well, in this universe,
seems
I
to
don't
be the
think
case.
they
Or
know.
some do.
Some do, but some don't. It's that's still up in the air. Rorschach's journal, yes, he was taking journals the entire time he was investigating the murder of the comedian, and I believe even before that. And right before he died, he sent it in to get published. So it got published, and they've obviously misinterpreted the text
Yes.
in a very big bad way.
Yeah.
Yes, which he's a tough person to misinterpret too, because from what I know, just from like researching, reading some of the graphic novels so far, and just even the movie, because that is where there's some similarities there. He's just like misunderstood as a character anyway. Like he really isn't a hero. He's
No,
he's
definitely
very
not.
dark.
He's
does
like
some fucked up shit.
he's a weird guy. He's
Yeah,
a very weird
Little short
dude.
king just beating the shit out of people.
Yeah, smells bad, wears a fedora, the whole thing.
Yes, definitely smells bad. Yeah,
Smells
eats
bad.
beans.
Yeah,
big
gross.
lines,
bean
though.
eater.
You're locked
Yeah.
in here with
Oh,
me.
definitely,
Oh,
yeah.
great line.
Again, the movie helps a little there.
Definitely, yeah.
But
the movie will give you broad strokes. If you're looking to get like the broad
Yeah.
strokes of the backstory, the movie is fine enough.
Yeah, I'm working my way through the graphic novel, and it enlightens you, because the first episode I'm like, I don't think it'll matter, and then I'm just reading through like Wikipedia pages and stuff. I'm like, I may as well just fucking read this thing.
There's also like a motion comic that's out there too that I would recommend, because that's pretty cool too.
So this one introduces the first, well, officially the first time we see someone who was a Watchman, who was a Minuteman, like a part of that.
And they acknowledge it.
You meet Laurie Blake, who that's the first official confirmation of someone. She was Silk Spectre too, her mother, all that. Her father was the comedian, which we'll get into that in a second, which is a very interesting part of this episode and how they frame her character, played by Jean Smart, who did a pretty fucking awesome job, I thought.
Really good, yeah.
I thought she was great.
Yeah.
Obviously, we knew that it was Adrian Veidt, Ozymandias, but there was no official confirmation. So the first time we got it was Laurie Blake. Eventually, later on in the episode, we get the Ozymandias confirmation, like for the first time.
I couldn't tell if they like knew that we knew that it was him, because I knew it was him pretty quickly.
They did that sort of tease too during that part where like they're reading off the letter like "my dearest," and then he's like, "Oh, let's dispense with the formalities." And
I know,
like, oh,
yeah.
you motherfuckers.
Yeah,
Like, just tell us. We know it's
Like
Ozymandias.
they knew that we knew, right?
Yeah, Lindelof, and like they said that with Comic-Con when they introduced it, I think they noted that he was billed as like, you probably know who this is,
Or
something
like
that.
blonde guy in the first episode. It just said blonde man.
So like they knew it. They just
Alright.
didn't want to like throw it completely out there right away. So this is kind of
cool.
how they revealed it. Yeah, it worked out fine.
Great reveal.
It
Very
was.
good reveal,
It was
yeah.
a very good reveal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All frightened. Adrian Veidt.
So we meet her. She's a special agent. She's locking up masked heroes. She definitely has a very cynical, negative take on people in masks. And he actually says in the next episode, which we'll get to at the end, we're going to do some predictions at the end, he says that her ideology will be explored in terms of how she feels about people in masks. She even mentions it. She asks Angela Abar, who is played by Regina King, who was in this episode, but not as much as the last two. This is more of a Laurie Blake story. She asks, like, what's the difference between a masked cop and a vigilante? And she's like, I don't know. So that kind of is the first real hint as to like where she
I very much felt in that moment. I was like, all right, this is important. This line means
right
something.
here,
They took like
very
an extra
specifically
beat.
important.
Yeah.
And she really didn't like, what was the act called? DOPA?
It was DOPA, yeah.
Yeah, Defensive Police Act or something. She was
Yeah.
very much like against that with the senator. By the way, the senator,
Senator Keene.
Senator Keene, very evil guy vibes with that guy.
Definitely.
I'm like,
And-
this guy's gonna be a bad guy.
He's got to be involved in the 7th Cavalry in some way. I loved the little Dark Knight homage in the beginning, like her introduction in the bank. That guy was Christian Bale Batman, and he was doing the voice. The bank looked like the bank. And also, her character, I felt like everyone in the police force and everyone who's Looking Glass and him,
Yeah.
it felt like they were so advanced and so on top of this shit. And then she came in and basically made them feel like, I don't know, a cheap operation.
idiots, yeah.
She is like smarter than everyone at this point. She definitely does not believe Angela about the hanging of Judd. Doesn't believe any of it. Like, not at all. She finds the wheelchair marks from Will Reeves. That is, I think, probably the biggest thing to pull from this episode is that she does, like you said, she feels one step ahead. She makes them feel like some small-time bit nothingness.
Yeah.
But yeah, she I feel like she tries to press people's buttons to see like where they kind of fall. Like,
Yes.
because you get people mad.
Her
that's when you
giving the
figure out-
business card at the funeral and all of that, like
really-
letting her know, like, I know, lady.
Yeah, and then the two people that sort of like, she gets pushback sort of from Angela Abar, and then also gets pushback from that agent guy. I think when she gets pushback, that's when she begins to respect whatever the character she's actually interrogating.
And maybe she's seeing signs of like her youth, like, all right, this is like similar to what I was trying to do back in the day.
She's a lot more like, Laurie Blake is a lot more like the comedian in this, who she found out was her father. Then she
Yeah.
is more like Silk Spectre 1, her mother.
Way like hardened and all that,
way
jaded to
cynical,
everything.
like
Yes.
nihilistic about the whole situation. Yeah.
Which Lindelof said he was intrigued by the idea of Laurie as the comedian in this. So he just straight up said it. There is not even like maybe she is
Homage
acting
or
like that.
whatever,
Like
yeah.
straight up, he has said like this is who she's trying to be. She tells a fucking joke.
Yeah.
The show starts out with a joke. It's exactly like that. It's a much different look on life and the world, and she embraces her father, has her father's last name, which is just it's a completely different story from what we have with the graphic novel. And there's kind of that gap in between the graphic novel and now of like what happened, right?
Yeah.
Where she now identifies in that way, where she didn't before.
I wonder if we'll get to see more in the gap, because when they showed us the White Knight, that was a crazy intense, awesome scene, like going back even just 2 years before the show takes place, 3 years, whatever it is. But yeah, this understanding of the source material and the way Lindelof has spun every character and made it so like the sheriff's murder is sort of like the comedian's murder, and he's making her the comedian and all of that. Like, it's an understanding that I have never had and will never have. It's like he gets this. He gets the tone of Watchmen.
Which is super important, obviously, when you're making a show like this to not lose base of that sort of
yes.
general motif you're going for.
You know, people were trashing it for being too political. Like those people.
Did you
kick
never
rocks.
read the
like,
fucking
Watchmen
novel?
is a political novel. Like that's what it is.
And it's definitely not black and white either, because this is what Laurie Blake says at the end of the episode, or towards the end when she's talking to Angela Abar, obviously who is a cop, and says the guy hanging from the tree tends to think of themselves as good guys, and so do the people who protect them. And she questions that because, yeah, it might seem black and white at first, like, oh, they hung the cop, right? But that's kind of the whole point here is we don't know who the good guys are, and they all could be bad at this point.
And they show like it's not just a right wing like they're the worst. That they show like bad things in the opposite direction too. It's almost I read someone said it's instead of going way too far right under Nixon, we went way too far left under Redford, and that's the universe this show takes place in, and I love that. Like the cop in the first episode trying to get the gun out of the holster, trying to get his guy to let him take it out, like that was perfect, showing like why that would be so dumb.
The other character that we see the most part of in terms of like being alone with like the microscope on them is Adrian, is Ozymandias. We see the reveal. The big question from this show, even more than the other episodes, is where is he?
What's going on with him?
He's very clearly being held captive by the quote-unquote game warden. Is he on Mars? We saw he has tomato trees.
That's
which
like,
isn't a thing.
Yeah, definitely not real. Yeah.
Now, he is, obviously, he's known for all of bioengineering and all of that kind of weird stuff. I think, and it's not like my original thought because it seems to be the basis for everyone's theory right now, is that yes, he is on Mars. Dr. Manhattan is somehow keeping him captive. Dr. Manhattan is the game maker. Are we going to see Dr. Manhattan, do you think, as a character on the show?
Well, so that was another thing Lindelof did address, is he addressed that and how when you bring him in, you kind of...
everything changes.
You break rules. Things have to change because
like,
he is
God is now on the show.
Yeah. Exactly.
You get really sci-fi-ish the second you hit that point.
It sounds like we will get him, but just to what extent we don't know. And
I almost hope we don't for a little bit. Like I'm enjoying the very grounded Tulsa story right now.
Totally agree.
Yeah, and so keep in mind too, in the beginning, the first episode, we see him on Mars, and he's building some sort of castle on Mars out of Mars rocks or something. I'm not an astronaut, so I don't know what the proper terminology is.
Whatever.
The red rocks, yeah. It is the castle that he lives in. Like, that was a very brief clip, but that's what I think a lot of people pulled from there.
Yeah, that's what I saw.
So it would make sense. But what else? What is he trying to do? He has these clones.
I couldn't tell.
He's testing shit out.
I think he was trying to make a space
He was
suit.
definitely trying to make a spacesuit at one point.
The interesting thing here that was brought up, though, listening to Lindelof talk about this show, he said, what makes you think he made the clones, too? So there's no definitive that, like, Ozymandias may not have made these clones.
I still think he did.
I assumed it was Dr. Manhattan that made them, just because he doesn't have the materials. Clearly, he can't even make a spacesuit. I don't know how he'd make clones.
He tried to make a spacesuit out of, like, a medieval times
out of, like,
piece
leather
of armor.
suits and, like, a glass tank. Like,
I don't know what's up with the cake. He made it out of honeycomb. It was, like, disgusting, he said.
Is that Dr. Manhattan, though, taunting him in some way?
Maybe.
Like, maybe that's what lends me to think that they aren't made by Ozymandias. They're, in fact, made by Dr. Manhattan, that like they're there to do things to piss him off and to taunt him because he is being held captive, obviously.
Yeah.
In some way, shape, or form. We don't know who it's by. We can assume it's Dr. Manhattan. But maybe like, I don't know, that repetitive cake thing in the anniversary, it just seems so like frustrating for him.
Yes.
So that to me, I think makes sense because I think the one torturous thing you could do if you're Dr. Manhattan and you want to punish Ozymandias for everything he's done is you make him put into this like, Sisyphant effort where no matter how hard he tries, he will never achieve the goal he's looking for, no matter how smart he is.
It's the Bane like hope thing almost.
Yeah, exactly. Like he can try no matter how hard, he just is never going to have the materials and never have the right manpower to actually get his task done, which is what I think he's doing. I think he made that spacesuit, somehow got that guy into space. You see how his face was like frozen and broke apart as if like he was decompressed in space and stuff. So that to me makes sense.
Yeah.
Maybe even they're on like whatever, let's say a terrarium or something on Mars, and he just physically can't leave it because you can't survive on the surface of Mars, obviously. And maybe he just puts them out there and then they die.
Laurie, the rest of the episode, they foil. This is what she kind of crossed paths with Angela Abar. I discussed like what she said to her. They kind of have a bit of a standoff.
Yeah.
Late at night.
Just like a mausoleum.
They were investigating because the 7th Cavalry tried to do like a suicide bombing of the funeral for Judd. And that's where her and Laurie kind of had that standoff about arguing about where Laurie's like, we aren't totally sure if he was really hung by the 7th Cavalry. Obviously, Angela knows that Will Reeves, who was in a wheelchair, and that's how Laurie knew that. She saw the tire marks from the wheelchair by the crime scene. She knows that Angela knows something.
Yep.
And Angela, I think, senses she knows, because they talk about the fact that when Laurie went over to Judd's house, there's a bust in the secret compartment of the closet, and it's not...
Doesn't have the costume.
It doesn't have the Klan costume
robes or whatever.
Yeah.
Which that was some reveal, by the way.
Yeah.
It was a big reveal.
The initial one was like, holy shit.
What do you think the kind of the story is behind that? So he was obviously, he staged the shooting and everything with him getting shot so that he could get credibility within the police force. Like, hey, I'm not with 7th Cavalry. They shot me. Like, so the credibility's there, but was he a double agent for the 7th Cavalry after that? Like, helping protect them from within the police force?
I'm not sure. Something's definitely up with him in the White Knight. The way when he was next to her when she woke up from that, and he was like, yep, you killed the only one or whatever. And it was like, well, there was 2 in there. It was like, were you the other one? That's what I was thinking. It was like, were you the other one? Were you? And we didn't see how she got to the hospital because of that. I think someone mentioned that on Reddit or something. I clicked on a bunch of Watchmen theories as I was watching the show last night, and I think someone mentioned that, and I'm fully behind it.
My thing is, like, I like that answer. Like, I like that. It makes sense. That's where he is in this storyline. Like, that is what he was doing.
But there's got to be more to it.
But I wrote this down. If the answer seems obvious, it typically isn't the answer with this show. That's the thing, which is what makes it so intriguing, because that seems like that would make complete sense. But then again, maybe it doesn't. Like, people have said that you see the picture of him and his father in that closet before you see the Klan robe. Maybe that's his father's. Maybe it's some sort of reminder for him. Maybe that isn't his. Like, the answer's there. I feel like we don't know it.
Yeah.
And, like, why would he set up the raid on the barn where they killed, like, 10 of the 7th Cavalry guys? And, like, he was very, very involved in that process.
It was crazy watching the horses get shot, by the way, by the machine guns.
Yeah.
That was, like, really disturbing.
Very disturbing.
Big time. Yeah,
Crazy show. This is a crazy show.
It's a bad shit show.
Yeah.
And then it ends with Laurie. Well, there is something that comes up, but it's an audience question. I'm going to get to it. It's very blue and very big. But it ends with her in the Dr. Manhattan phone booth. She's on the phone. She wraps up her initial jokes from the beginning of the episode and ties it in with the story. And it was about a brick falling from the sky, because she was the one who threw the brick in the sky. And she goes outside, and the car from the second episode drops down. Will Reeves was in it. At the end of the second episode, he's no longer in it, and you see this Mars-like dot that kind of fades away, and she laughs, and she clearly knows what it is, or she gets, quote-unquote, the joke, I guess. But I think that might be the most vague thing that happens the entire episode.
Definitely, and I don't think it's Dr. Manhattan. I think there's zero chance, at least, I think Dr. Manhattan has the ability to listen into anyone on Earth that he wants to, probably, but I don't think there's any chance the phone booth she's using is some kind of signal to Dr. Manhattan. It sounded like X-ray glasses on the back of a comic gimmick.
Yeah.
Like, call in and you can talk to Dr. Manhattan. He'll listen to what you have to say.
It reminds me of, like, letters to Santa. Like,
exactly. That's what I believe this is. So I'm like, where is that car coming from if it's not Dr. Manhattan?
Yeah.
It has to be. He's, like, omnipotent, too, so, like, he can see anything.
I guess, it definitely
time,
could be him, and if he could see everything. We'll get to that big blue thing later, but
we sure will.
I got a couple audience questions here. This one comes from Gus_weed_camp_23. There we go.
There you go.
Very confusing. He asks this question: will we see Night Owl in this series? We've been told we will not.
He's in jail, right, for this?
He is in jail.
That's what they allude to.
There's a very cool shot when we first meet Laurie, when she's in her apartment and she's in front of this, like, comic strip type painting.
It looks like the old Watchmen drawings. Right?
Yeah. She is in front of her Silk Spectre picture, and then you see Ozymandias, you see Night Owl, you see Dr. Manhattan. It's a very cool picture.
It's awesome.
They reference she has an actual owl in a cage. Senator Keene talks about, like, what could kind of the payback be if he becomes president, if she kind of follows the lead of him, which, again, that just alludes to him being a bad dude.
He's definitely a bad dude.
And obviously Night Owl's in jail. Night Owl is also being held captive, probably not on Mars jail. But do we think we do see him? We're told we will not, but there's been some rumors because the Tulsa PD kind of has, like, Night Owl tech.
Yeah.
Definitely. They have the owl thing.
They have the thing. We see Will Reeves get pulled away within his car. Like, that seems like something that could have been from Night Owl as well. I
think he's definitely in the show.
I do too. Like, I hate saying that.
I didn't think that until we got, like, this episode. Like, before this, I was like, this is not a sequel to Watchmen. It's just this takes place in the Watchmen universe later on. And now I'm like, all right, this is a sequel to Watchmen.
I think
like,
it'll
we
be
have Ozymandias, we have Silk Spectre, we have everyone. Like, he's got to come into the fold at some point.
I think it'll be an interview. Like, they go to ask him, almost like not Hannibal Lecter style, but sort of like
almost
that.
True Detective style you could do.
They go to ask him for some sort of reference point or something, but I don't think he's free and out and about helping everybody.
No, I don't think he'll be like a focal point in the series. I think we just got to catch up. Knowing he's alive, knowing he's out there in the universe, like, if they didn't want him in the show for real, they could have been like, yeah, he died.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I not that I think they're liars, but I think they're kind of liars.
They're liars.
I think
You're
he's
lying
in
to
it.
me.
At Space Bake says, who is helping Will Reeves? Do we think it's Night Owl? Do we think it's Dr. Manhattan? And my question on top of that is, do we think he's the real Hooded Justice? There is some symbolism a bit, the way his vest and everything kind of looks like that character, and the show within the show, which is kind of stylized after Zack Snyder, American,
definitely,
which is awesome.
It's American Hero
Story.
Yep.
You told me that beforehand, and I was watching it, kind of being like, let's see if I pick up on the same thing Jeff did, and you couldn't miss it.
Yeah,
they're like slow motion, speed up, like.
I don't know if it's making fun of him. I think it's a nod. Some people think it's
like a homage. Yeah,
I don't think it's making fun of him.
Some people, that debate's out there, but that's definitely what they're trying to do here.
It has to be.
They show Hooded Justice in that show, and they mention in that fictionalized show that Hooded Justice faked his death, so we don't actually know what Hooded Justice looks like. This would make sense. Everything with the hanging of Judd, it just all kind of ties up. Do we think he's the actual Hooded Justice?
Again, it feels like the thing that's too obvious, but I want to say yes.
Is there anything about Hooded Justice you can explain from the comic?
I honestly don't remember a ton of Hooded Justice because he's not a major figure. Like,
because he was a part of the
original Minutemen.
Yeah.
So it's like all of them kind of get glossed over. I'm sure there's some kind of mythos that you could dive into now, but I don't know a ton about Hooded Justice. I just know that he had super strength and all that, and it's like
all we know about him is
in the first episode, this guy said I could lift 200 pounds or whatever.
He has connections to Germany. And we know the pamphlet that he had as a boy was German propaganda to African Americans who were fighting in World War I. So it all kind of makes sense there a little bit.
But because it makes sense, is that why it's not the case? Because it makes too much sense.
Part of the problem.
Yeah.
But all we know is that he claims to have hung him, Judd, in the tree, and also he says he's Angela's father. Or he doesn't say that as much as
her grandfather.
That,
right?
Yeah, grandfather.
Yeah.
She figures out via the DNA testing that it's her grandfather. And lastly, last question from @TylerBitchin. That's a good handle for this question. Should we talk about the elephant in the room? By elephant, I mean that as a metaphor for the massive blue dildo that Agent Blake pulled out of that suitcase, which is probably the most shocking reveal yet.
But the most Watchmen thing ever.
They did such a Pulp Fiction thing with it earlier in the episode too, where she opens the suitcase up and you get the
a little
big blue glow, and you're like, "Oh, what's in the case? We're not going to see it." And then they show a layer and she pulls it out. And I'll just say it. Yet another unrealistic standard for men to live up to. That's fucked up, Watchmen. I can't believe you did this to us. But man, was it funny. That was a laugh out loud funny.
Once she got that Dr. Manhattan dick. It's
that's tough to come back from.
It is.
No dick is ever going to be the same.
What do you do after that?
She is, but see, this goes back to what I was saying, where I don't know. Like, it feels like she's figured things out, and the show wants you to think that she's smarter than ever. Not even smarter than everyone, but she's just a step ahead, and she has that instinct. But she's still very clearly, like, she has that identity crisis. She has those demons.
Got some screws loose, yeah.
Yeah, there's still some things that are kind of fucking her up, where it just leaves you a little bit of doubt. Like, maybe she's wrong here. Like, she's seeing through this right now. She's seeing that the good guys maybe aren't good, which is confirming a lot of what we suspect with Judd, with the police force, with Angela. But again, like, the fact that it's confirming for us that maybe we were right in suspicions.
Taking us in a whole different direction.
It shows me that she's got some things going on. We're like, all right, maybe we're wrong too here.
Yep.
All right, predictions. We'll wrap it up. Predictions for the next episode. Things that were teased. We'll be introduced to the Millennium Clock Tower. Which we've only seen so far, which is apparently from Lady True. It's an ode to Ozymandias, or we don't know if it's a complete ode, but it has some relation to him. It was designed with him in mind. We hear that from Petey, who is the who helps Laurie Blake on her trip to Tulsa, works for the FBI.
That's a tough adult name.
It is. There's a thing you can actually
go by Pete.
There's some stuff dropped online called the Peteypedia. He is the guy.
Oh,
like he knows everything.
Oh, okay.
Which he alludes to. Like, he's like, I'm not even. He's like, it's not that I'm a fan. He goes, I just know. Like, I know things.
She was a dick to him.
She was very mean. But then
and then he was a dick to her, literally. So
true.
It all worked out.
She wouldn't let him eat sunflower seeds.
I know.
Don't give him a bag of sunflower seeds so you don't eat
eat them.
Come on.
Dick move.
It's a bit much. So what is it? It's called The First Wonder of the New World. There's some real fucked up shit, I imagine, with this thing. Again, he mentions Adrian/Ozymandias. Are we going to call him for the rest of these Adrian or Oz? Can we just call him Ozymandias?
Ozymandias.
Okay, we're just going to do that. And then Looking Glass, the other thing we see is he is shown the Klan outfit from Judd Crawford, which again ties back to guys who have secret compartments, think they're good, and people who protect them think they're good as well. So
Looking Glass, great character.
He is, and he is
his interrogation scenes with the twist on the Rorschach.
Yep.
Oh,
I feel like he is the one who I think when he figures things out, that's what's going to be true.
Yeah.
Because I feel like he's the most
you're right.
pure.
I think you're right.
Character there, yeah.
Yeah, which
he's one with his character. Obviously, he's still like he's at his trailer and he's still eating with the mask on. Like that is his identity. Like Rorschach was Rorschach's identity. Yeah.
He has. It just feels like he's very comfortable with how he views the world. Not comfortable, but he's very straightforward with it. He's very sure of it.
He feels like he gets it.
Exactly. So I feel like when he figures something out, that's going to be the answer.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like he's going to figure it. Like I feel it's going to take a long time.
It's going to take him a while. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely with his reaction to the way that Laurie was kind of like, oh, your name is so and so, and your colleague is so and so, and he's just like, yeah,
all right.
I guess it is.
Do you notice how they gloss over Rorschach a lot in this? Like whenever he gets mentioned, they immediately
looking glass. They gloss over it. Nice.
And whenever they mention, very much not on purpose, but I'll take the bump anyway. But whenever he's mentioned in this series, they always make a point to like, let's move on.
To be like,
let's
fuck
not
this
talk
guy.
about this. No, but not even that. But they're like, let's not talk about him.
Yeah, they're like, what is this, 1980?
Yeah, they're like, I don't know why that is. If they're trying to hide what his real motivation and real purposes throughout the actual series is going to be.
Any prediction for this next episode?
No, I don't know what's gonna happen. I didn't know that we were gonna get like a Silk Spectre. Like here she is.
I think we find out
I think we go back to more of a less Watchmen-y story at least, because
back to like Angela?
kind of reminded me of Lost. You know how Lost would do like the character episodes.
Funny.
For sure.
Funny you say Lost, obviously.
Because
Literally the same guy.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
And I was also lost during this episode, but. I think, you go back to Angela, you go back to her investigation, which I want to see more of if we're being honest.
For sure.
Her look is so cool.
Night Sister, right?
It's amazing.
So awesome.
I think we find out where Ozymandias is. I think we have to. He's doing more tests. It seems like in the preview the test is somewhat successful.
I didn't see the preview.
I think we find out where he is.
And then we get a meeting between him and the Game Warden. I think we get that in this next episode, which is going to shed more on what's happening.
Wow.
Let me say this is that, I think it will be funny if the Game Warden's one of the clones.
That would be funny.
And then we just, that would confirm even more for me that it's just from Dr.
Dick to them. Yeah.
But the thing that I think most about this show is, and I liked Leftovers. I wasn't the biggest Lost fan. I like mysterious shows. I like ambiguous things. I like being confused, but you have to answer some things along the way.
Yep.
And this opens a lot of doors, but answers and closes doors at the same time, where it leads to that satisfaction, but it'll just branch out into something else. Like, I just thought for the longest time we were never going to hear if this was Adrian or this was Ozzy. Like, I just thought we were going to have to be guessing, because there were rumors of people saying, oh, this could be Dr. Manhattan playing him, right? Like, this could be some fucked up alternate, thought process.
I didn't even consider that, yeah.
It was just something thrown around, and so I just figured that we wouldn't get this question answered. They just answered this episode. Not, no bullshit, he just said it. But then from there, we branched out even more questions about that character. So they're answering a lot of questions, but then opening more doors, which brings the intrigue to a bigger level than just I'm just confused.
Totally.
And that's why that's why I think it works.
They portion it out well too. It's like just enough where it's like you want to be confused, like you're saying, like you want some stuff to be ambiguous, but they feed you enough morsels where it's like this isn't now so confusing where I no longer want to watch it. It's like I'm still confused, but I have enough information to continue, and I have enough resolution, I would say, with whatever I'm looking for right now.
Yeah, and shout out to them for making it easy enough for a dumb brain like myself to understand and enjoy the show.
There's so much that I pick up days after at this point, which is again why
I think I got to go back and watch all of them, because what I did last night is I watched all 3 in a row at from midnight to 3 a.m. So now I have to go back and watch.
Oh yeah, big time. I think I'm gonna do the same thing.
We're gonna we'll discuss episode 4 on Monday. We'll do this each week. So next week, make sure to tune in. We're gonna discuss episode 4 of Watchmen. There's 9 episodes in the season.
Great.
Yeah. So we're not even halfway through.
Yeah.
We're also gonna start The Mandalorian next week.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
So we'll do this for
I
shows
can't believe
that
that's
come out.
already next week.
That's wild.
Wild.
That's insane. So make sure to hit that like button, thumbs up, subscribe. We'll talk to you next week.